Apparently, there are people in New York raiding restaurants. Let's see what this is all about.
Outdoor diners, beware. This surveillance video shows what's starting to look like a pattern of armed robberies at outside restaurants. Police are trying to figure out whether the holdups are connected.
So a new disturbing trend in New York's ever-evolving sea of crime has emerged. And even though police have no leads since the crooks targeting these restaurants all escaped on mopeds, this is the type of crime that happens so quickly and is so easy to pull off that experts say it's only going to get worse.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah, the easy getaway on the small scooter bike. I could see that. Yeah, especially the little clip that it showed on the phone, just being out in the open air seating of the restaurant. Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening easily.
The thieves are demanding watches, wallets, and cell phones.
The video we're talking about shows men moving around a dining table and scaring people.
Investigators say one of them had a gun, another had a knife. Police say they got away with $200 in cash from the register and 5 iPhones from customers.
They're using crimes of opportunity where they're just basically grabbing purses or handbags off chairs and running out.
Surveillance video shows a man toting a gun. He's demanding customers here to hand over their watches and wallets. Detectives are now looking into whether or not the same men robbed customers at Carbone in Lower Manhattan.
Is there one thing in...
Man, these guys get around. They're moving everywhere, working these people. This is crazy.
particular that you think is leading to this?
Well, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of the laws that have been passed that have basically tied the hands of the police.
Officers are now
Yeah, aren't they allowed to take up to like a little, like right under $1,000 worth of stuff, and they don't really get serious criminal charges for it or something like that?
required to record the race, age, and gender of anyone they approach.
It slows officers down from going
age and gender of anyone they approach. Officers are now required to record the race, age, and gender of anyone they approach.
It slows officers down from going to a scene immediately.
Overall robberies are up 5%
so.
citywide compared to the same time frame last June.
Yeah, they're not getting enough people on the streets. They got to go up to the restaurants now. Let's go in. Come on, there's so many people sitting around. I see so many purses and bags and watches. We'll get them. These guys are crazy.
If you go out to eat in this city, your waiter might be replaced with a robber. Now, the police say they're not sure if these incidents are related, but what nobody's talking about is that all of these incidents are related to the fact that this city does not punish crime. And here, if you steal under $1,000 worth of stuff from any store in town, you'll suffer no consequences because...
That's what I thought. Okay, under $1,000, no consequences. That is crazy. That's actually crazy. I failed to see the positive. If you steal, go to jail. Get them off the streets. Put them behind bars. Just leave them. Just leave them there. Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, to be fair, you know, the cause of the desperation should be part of consideration, but programs should be implemented for that. You know, better housing, better job opportunities. This is the job of the government to come up with better solutions for our people. But it is these people's decisions, their personal decisions with their free will to be stealing. They made these choices. Throw them behind bars. That's what I say.
That's a misdemeanor, which has created a huge problem because for the last year, stores like Macy's have been getting robbed regularly, which is why everything inside is now chained to the store itself. And what this means is thieves need easier targets to steal from. And
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, even in my small town, go to Walmart, can't get pens or things like that because it's all behind glass. Pokemon cards, I guess, makes sense. I was looking at Pokemon cards the other day to open some with my daughter, but yeah, just it's crazy what they have to put behind a metal and glass case these days so that people can't just grab it off the counter and run away with it.
Our money-hungry crooks, they're not looking at stores anymore. Oh no, now they're setting their sights upon the rest of us as we chow down on bagels in the middle of the West Village because our...
Not the bagel eaters, no!
Phones, wallets, and handbags make us walking dollar signs to these thieves, who might even be lurking among us as if they're just regular people. Not just at restaurants, but also at the grocery store or even on the subway, which itself is no stranger to violence and crime, and now looks more like a military occupation zone because of the high levels of police doing bag checks and the presence of the National Guard. Which brings us to the real reason why we've now got a crime wave up off ground target.
That's really weird to me. So they didn't think that with taking away consequences for people stealing under $1,000, that, there would be a need for more police and more the National Guard, apparently. Like, you guys don't see the correlation there? Maybe if you were harder on crime, you would need less National Guard presence. It's very odd, the reasoning over there.
Getting restaurants just like this. There simply aren't enough police to keep us all safe at once. In fact, New York City right now has as many police as it did back in the 90s. But the population of the city has grown by over 1 million people since then, which is a...
That's crazy to hear it put like that. Oh my goodness. You've got to scale up your police force with the population, I would think. Like, shouldn't there be... I don't know the numbers. I have no idea how this works. I don't know how they gauge, what is appropriate coverage. But let's say, for example, 1 police officer for 6 city blocks or something like that. Something like that. Like, and it should be scaled up if the city is growing. Okay, we have, whatever. I don't know how big New York is. I have no idea. Let's say 5,000 city blocks. Who knows? But for whatever number of city blocks, okay, 6 of those, each one, police officer. We're growing. We need more police officers. That's how it should be. We should be policing our cities and making sure this crime is not happening and having stricter rules about these crimes. This is just, they're digging their own hole and then complaining about it.
Recipe for perpetual crime, because when all the crime underground started, every available resource was sent down there to stop it, leaving all of us up here utterly defenseless. Easy pickings for criminals who can steal everything we have in seconds.
You know what? People just need to get good. Just don't get stolen from. Come on, fight back. Come on. What are you doing? Don't let them take your stuff. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. You can't really expect people to say no to somebody who's got a gun in their face. I mean, I don't know that I could, So it's just, it's unfortunate. Poor decision making by the city's leadership. It's crazy.
So here we are at Carbone, a famous restaurant in New York's West Village where thugs recently targeted its patrons who were eating outside. Now, this place has a high-end reputation. It was started in 2013. Celebrities eat here. And a USDA prime porterhouse for 2 will set you back almost $300. And that...
$300? I mean, I know you guys are in New York, but dang, $300. That would buy so many bottles of Dr. Pepper.
That's what makes this place an attractive destination for criminals, because they know everyone eating here can afford the food and is probably also dressed to impress.
The video we're talking about shows men moving around a dining table outside, and apparently they're demanding cash, they're demanding wallets.
Detectives are now looking into whether or not the same men robbed customers at Carbone in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess not enough targets just walking the streets, and so it's just easy pickings because they're out on the sidewalk essentially still, because they're in outdoor dining. I guess that's the next best step if you're not getting enough people just walking down the sidewalk.
Allegedly stealing a $100,000 watch. Police believe this could...
So this span of robberies has happened over the last couple of weeks. And before we get into the details of how these criminals operate, as well as the testimony from terrified patrons of all of these places, it's important to understand the one thing in common they all have. First, these are popular places to eat. In fact, so many people want to eat at them that not everybody can fit inside the restaurant. That's why you have these massive outdoor dining sheds like the one behind me that is pretty much a restaurant in and of itself.
Makes sense. Yeah, and especially New York City, especially downtown New York, right? I mean, there's not going to be enough room inside the building for everyone to sit if it's a popular restaurant. It makes sense.
Look, it's got air conditioners and stuff in it, tables inside. The bagel shop down the street has people sitting outside. But the issue is...
the bagel eaters, not the bagel eaters.
Here you are, all by yourself on a public sidewalk in the middle of New York City with no police anywhere in sight. And these restaurants and businesses, they don't have security guards. No, it's just you get your food and you can eat outside if you want to, and that's on you. And
maybe that's what they need. It just struck me. I remember in the Philippines, I've been to the Philippines quite a few times, and like every business has an armed security guard pretty much, like with a shotgun. They're not messing around. It's not some dinky little pistol. It's like shotguns around, on a shoulder strap. Maybe that's what we need here in the U.S. Maybe we need to start getting serious with our security at these establishments.
This is a safe neighborhood, so it's kind of alarming that incidents like this are taking place here, but once you understand why these criminals are picking these places out specifically, it'll all make sense. Especially when you realize that people eating out in New York City as a big group are utterly distracted and not really thinking about personal safety. But
I mean, you really shouldn't have to, though. Like, isn't that one of our freedoms? Especially in like a first world country and in the society that we live in, like, shouldn't we have the comfort and freedom to walk around like somewhat carefree and just feel like we could be safe walking around in public during the daytime in the middle of a city? I don't know. It's not outlandish for me to think that we should have that kind of comfort and security, but it is really unfortunate that we don't in certain places like this.
there's a much more frightening reason why criminals are looking to target people specifically on the streets.
Robbery is not on the menu here at Marlowe & Sons in Williamsburg, but that's exactly what some outdoor diners got. You can see the customers give up their belongings.
That really was a stretch by the news anchor there. Robbery was not on the menu for the diners at this place, but that's what they got. They're pulling out the dad jokes on these news stations. Jeez.
Before the gunman takes off on a scooter.
So New York City has a massive moped problem right now, and the thieves, a team of 2, were riding one of these mopeds, which is how they were able to escape so quickly. Now the drivers will wait in the street with the engine running just steps away from where people are sitting, and then the passenger gets off. And in the video that we're looking at here, the passenger was the one who had the weapon and who went around to each person at that table and asked for their valuables and then got back on the moped and escaped. Now observe.
Yeah. Those bikes, man, those scooters, so fast. It's so fast. And so, like, I mean, you can be scooting in between cars and just get out of there so fast. It makes sense that they're getting away with this for so long because they have that easy getaway.
Observers say restaurant crime has a lot in common with the other types of moped crime we're witnessing, where thugs quickly approach unsuspecting New Yorkers as they're walking down the sidewalk, take a valuable, and then ride off into the night. But you see, that type of crime, it's a crime of opportunity because you have to be on your bike, riding past somebody who looks like someone that you would want to target. But at a restaurant, there's a whole bunch of people sitting outside with their guard down. It's perfect.
I guess it is kind of smart in a way. Yeah, these thieves are getting kind of smart. You know what I'm saying? Because You drive by these fancy restaurants and you see people sitting outside. You know that they can afford expensive watch, expensive phone, and probably cash in the wallet. So, yeah, I guess they're getting kind of smart. Maybe in the wrong direction. You could use those smarts for something productive for society.
Perfect for criminals in a city that's not willing to protect its residents. On top of that, people at a restaurant, they're sitting down, they're on their phone, they can't get up, they can't run away, and they're dressed well most of the time.
Right.
And no one at any of these places is looking for trouble. And what's sickening about all this is it is the logical progression of unchecked robberies that happen on the street. Now, restaurants aren't even safe places, which is exactly what...
Exactly, yeah. Just what I was saying, right? They're running out of good options on the street, or maybe they're robbing people and taking too much risk because they can't tell if they have, a lot of money or whatever. But you have these very clear targets with high-end restaurants or whatever, and you know that these people would have some money on them. I guess it is just kind of the natural progression.
But witnesses of these events are saying on Reddit. This discussion covers all the recent restaurant robberies, and one user writes that it all happened so fast, most people weren't even sure what was happening. On top of that, all of these crimes occurred during dining hours, between 6:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. in the evening.
And especially, I just thought about this, with the current landscape of just pranksters on TikTok all the time, it seems like, you wouldn't even know for sure if you're getting pranked or something. Like, I don't know if I would take it seriously immediately. Someone comes up and be like, hey man, give me your watch. Like, what? What are you talking about? I'm getting pranked, right? This has got to be a joke.
Evening, which means this crime is different from purse snatchings that happen on sidewalks. These were premeditated attacks, specifically targeting the patrons of expensive, pricey restaurants and expensive, pricey parts of town. The criminals knew what type of customers they were going to encounter in places like this, which is sadly the very reason these places were pre-selected targets. But just as crimes in places like this look like an escalation over previous types of street-related crime, there's a new escalation that has now started happening with the whole restaurant scene, and it's not happening on the street.
The most recent incident happened here at Birds of a Feather about a week ago. This time, 2 men held up customers dining inside of the restaurant. The men stole cell phones and a watch. Sources tell Pix 11 News.
Look at that.
Man, they're getting ballsy. First, just random passersby on the street. Then, the outdoor dining experience being interrupted by thieves. And now, even the indoor diners are not safe. This is pretty bad. I mean, this is a huge lapse by the leadership of New York. I mean, this is really bad.
Most recent incident did not happen at a sidewalk seating arrangement. No, it happened inside the restaurant. The thieves just walked in the front door and walked out with everyone's stuff. Which totally makes sense. If you're a criminal and you get away with minor crimes, you're just going to graduate to bigger and better heists.
True.
And the videos we're seeing all show the criminals targeting men who have expensive watches. And if you're a thief and you can get your hands on a watch, that's something very small, very pocketable, and very expensive that you can easily resell. Because in this city, we've got as many jewelry exchanges as we have restaurants, and finding a place where you could pawn that thing off won't be a problem. But there's
the pawn shops in New York City must be about or as prevalent as like corner store, like convenience stores. They have to be everywhere. I'm sure they're just everywhere.
There's another element to this new pattern of crime that is extremely alarming and makes it something that it's very hard to defend against. Because let's say you're eating over here at this restaurant, or let's say you're inside a nice restaurant. How hard is it to spot someone coming into the restaurant wearing a motorcycle helmet to pick up a delivery order? That is like the most common thing. So these thieves, they can get very close to their intended victims. They can hide in plain sight.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, they look so... It's like so unassuming because you're just like, oh yeah, motorcyclists everywhere doing deliveries, food deliveries, whatever, Uber Eats or whatever the case may be. And so you see the motorcycle helmet, it's not actually out of place. Like here in a small town, it probably would be out of place. But in a big city like New York City, oh man, that's got to be so commonplace. So yeah, you see them coming, you don't even think it's a big deal until they're right in front of you, pulling out the knife or the gun and saying, hey, give me your wallet and your phone and your watch. It's crazy.
Like blending in with normal restaurant traffic.
Right.
They're not even patrons at the restaurant. They just show up with their motorcycle gear on like every other delivery driver, and no one blinks. And this gives thieves who are riding an e-bike or a moped the opportunity to hide and bide their time until the exact moment presents itself for them to commit a crime. And even though most restaurants in town have security, how good are these cameras going to be when the thief is wearing a helmet and you can't see their face? And it's incredibly frightening to think that the next time you're having a meal anywhere in New York City, you could be being cased and spied on as you chow down.
That's so sad, man. Nowhere is safe. Everyone's got to have this eye in the back of their head and this uncomfortable feeling when they go out because nowhere is safe. It's so sad. It's just a huge lapse by the police department and mostly by the city's leadership. It's so sad.
But there is something the city could do if it really wanted to take this issue seriously and really wanted to put a stop to it. But as you're about to see, the solution to all of this is so logical and so straightforward that it's never gonna happen in this city, and that's something that should not only disappoint all of us, but should frighten us.
Okay.
Because we're all targets. Here we have ye old police department. This is the Greenwich precinct, which is responsible for protecting people who were at that restaurant Carbone over in the West Village, but it's about a 15-minute walk. And the sad truth is that New York City just doesn't have enough police to keep everyone safe at once, especially with crime waves taking place in multiple places across the city at the exact same time.
I bet that's so difficult too, yeah. As a police officer and knowing it's not like it's the random officer's fault on E Street or whatever, you know, they're just doing their job, you know, that maybe they're on a bigger case at that moment and they get the call and it's like, this is a murder. I can't just leave right now. You know, that's got to be so difficult being understaffed, undermanned like that. And just, you're trying to do your best. And, you know, the citizens are angry with the force because, you know, they know there's not enough police officers around and you're like, yeah, I know too. I'm sorry.
Which isn't the kind of thing that matters to anybody until the watch off your wrist is taken when you're out to dinner and you still have to pay the tab because the food ain't free.
We have a staffing crisis going on in the NYPD right now. We lost nearly 3,000 police officers last year to just retirements, police officers leaving the department. Also, we're losing an average of over 200 police officers a month. So by the time we get to that...
That is crazy. That's crazy turnover and crazy, like 3,000 people retiring? Jeez, how big is the New York City Police Department? That's insane.
That is absolutely crazy. 200 officers leave the police department every single month. And not only does the police department here have monumental tasks in front of it, this attitude of defunding the police is still with us today. And that's why the numbers in the department itself are declining. And they're declining at a rate that is so fast, we aren't able to replenish the department with new recruits. And to make...
Dude. Oh, yes. I'm so glad this came up. Defund the police until you're getting robbed at gunpoint while you're eating with your family on the sidewalk. Until you're walking around town on just a random sunny day and your pocket gets picked and you want that wallet back. You want your money back. You want your phone back. You want whatever it is back. But there's not enough police officers to do the job. And you got to bite that one. You just got to take it because, yeah, you wanted to defund the police. Oh, man.
To make matters worse, we're losing experienced veteran officers. Which means not only is our police department shrinking at a time when New Yorkers need it most with all of these simultaneous crime waves going on, the experience of the department is decreasing, which some say means its effectiveness is also going to decrease.
That makes sense. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, all the senior officers are leaving or whatever, and it's mostly new, greenhorn officers. They don't know much. And yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense that the effectiveness would be declining as well.
Precincts across this city where we would normally turn out 6 to 8 patrol cars, right now we're turning out 2 to 3 patrol cars in those communities on a given tour.
So what does that do to the safety of the community?
The response times continue to rise. That is the reality of policing right now.
So some precincts are down from 8 patrol cars to just 2. That's a 75% reduction in available patrols. How is that not a recipe for more crime in pretty much every area of town? Less police means
Yes, exactly. It is a recipe for disaster. There's no debating it.
Response times are going to go through the roof because as crime becomes more common, police are now stuck choosing which incidents to respond to first, meaning...
Exactly, that's what I was just saying. Yes, my example, there's an officer dealing with a murder or something really serious, and they get the call for, a burglary or whatever, and it's like, well, sorry, I'm busy right now, can't answer that call, send somebody else. There is nobody else. That's just how it is.
Your watch getting stolen at a pricey restaurant might come in behind something much more serious. And what's incredibly frightening about this is that our criminals, they're not defunding themselves. No, they're expanding their operations in light of the lax security that happens whenever the police divert resources from one crime wave to try and deal with another. And what makes...
Exactly. Nobody's spraying that bug poison. Nobody's putting out those roach traps. Those roaches are going to spread. They're going to spread like wildfire, and they're going to take over, man.
Makes this even more frightening is the proliferation of weapons. So not only are the thieves becoming more numerous and more emboldened, they're also becoming more heavily armed week by week. And you know how they're smuggling the guns into shelters? They're using delivery bags like... this one right here. Apparently the shelters have metal detectors, but they're not actually scanning to see what's coming in the food packages. Does that mean there's a direct connection between all of the...
Just such major oversight, left and right. Oh, man. Something as simple as, they have a bag that's big enough to fit a gun. Should we scan that? No, it's probably food. Let it go.
This crime and the asylum crisis? Well, no, not necessarily. But it does mean there's a direct connection between the apparati that are supposed to keep us safe falling apart and increased crime. And the reason this disaster is unfolding upon us is not only because the police are shorthanded, it's also because our laws force them to fight crime with one hand tied behind their backs. And the latest example of all this is the How Many Stops Act, which is now in effect in New York.
Officers are now required to record the race, age, and gender of anyone they approach.
It slows officers down from going to a scene immediately.
I see now. Yeah, I see. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, they're having to take down so much information that they didn't have to before. They couldn't just get to the point and figure out what's going on like they could before. And so, yeah, the whole process is being slowed down. That on top of the lack of officers, and then like they were talking about in the video earlier, the effectiveness may be dropping as well because the squad overall is a lot younger and not as experienced. Yeah, it's just a really big recipe for disaster.
But the other side of it is...
Okay, now critics say that this is essentially a paperwork requirement that slows down law enforcement when we need more law enforcement faster, not less law enforcement slower. But proponents say having police record this information is important to make sure that law enforcement is happening in a fair manner for everyone. Now, whether or not you think this policy is a good idea is besides the point, because in a city with a short-handed police department, you've got to pick and choose what things you have your limited resources do. And the more time police spend using apps on their phones, the less time they have to stop crime. And as we just heard, many departments are short-handed right now, and if they've only got 2 patrol cars on the street and one of those patrol cars is busy filling out apps on their phone, there won't be enough cops to keep people safe.
Former NYPD
Yeah, just imagine somebody's busy filling out the last interaction that they had on their phone, this officer in their car, their patrol car, and there's a call coming in for something crazy, and he's like, I got to do my paperwork. Boss said if I don't do my paperwork, I'm going to, there's like a 3 strikes and I'm out, or something like that. I got to do it. Sorry, can't answer the call. That is lame. That is so bad.
Darren Porcher is concerned about delayed response time and the data itself. We reached out to the NYPD for a response. A spokesperson says the department has put in place policies, training, and technology to comply with the law. Officers will be using forms on...
Now, of course, this is just one example of a law that might hamstring police in the event of an emergency. But the thing that's crazy about this is all information, all of this demographic information, it would all be available in the event of an arrest. This applies to people who the police stop in a normal interaction. For example, if the police come out of the bomb squad department over here and they want to talk to me and it's an official stop, they're going to have to put my information to the best of their ability into this new system, which will be publicly available, apparently. But then the question becomes, if I'm...
Something about that sounds sketchy, too. Publicly available, so they're just profiling people, just taking down bunches of information, and it's all going to be publicly available. I mean, don't we already collect enough information? Isn't enough known about us already? Do we need the police force just having everything on us all the time as well? I don't know.
Not arrested for anything and there's no suspicion of guilt and I haven't committed a crime, what is the ultimate value of that? And there are fears that activists will use that information to further scrutinize our short-staffed NYPD, which could lead to more investigations that lead to nowhere and more oversight that is unwarranted in a time of increasing crime.
I also worry that there's just a general mentality, a lack of appreciation for police officers.
Well, I think the community.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. There's a lack of appreciation. That people wouldn't be calling for defunding the police if there wasn't this lack of appreciation. People, just get your heads figured out, straighten out. Like, I don't know what to say, but defunding the police is obviously not working. We have a clear example of it not working. This is not the right answer. We need to figure out something else.
Really support the police. It's the politicians that are enacting these laws that tie the hands of the police and put the public and the communities in harm's way.
And you don't see this.
So ultimately, there's nothing wrong with the system that increases the transparency at which a public institution like the NYPD does its job. That's a good thing. It will help keep the city safe. But the problem is the resources to do it aren't included with the plan that says it needs to get done. And right now, the police resources that we have are stretched so thin that the moment there's a crime wave in one part of the city, it pulls the resources over here. And then another crime wave pops up over here because the criminals saw an opening. Do you see what's happening? The police...
Yep, exactly. Yes. And I bet at least the smarter criminals, they're smart enough to pay attention to patrol routes and things like that. So as soon as a call gets called, they could even be coordinating, right? Hey, you need to take the lesser crime call to pull the police away so we can pull off this one over here, this bigger, heist or, burglarizing or whatever. It could be really coordinated. This is insane that they see the bad effects of this pullback on the police and all the police leaving and things like that, and they're not doing anything about it. Not significantly, anyway, if this problem is getting worse and worse.
Police are playing whack-a-mole with our crime waves. That's why they're impossible to stamp out. That's why we went from having a crime wave in the subway below where I'm standing to a crime wave up here at our restaurants. And you know what? Once they get rid of this, then crime is going to go right back into the subway. That's exactly what's going to happen. Now, are the police perfect? No, they're not. Do they always do their job fairly? No, but they are the protection that the law-abiding have when we're at a restaurant between us and the criminals who want to ride up on the street on a moped with a weapon and try to take our belongings and possibly harm us. And that's very frightening. It's very frightening to think that we don't have the backs of the people who are supposed to have our backs. What kind of system is that? Of course.
Yeah, it's so backwards. I mean, really, you guys want to get rid of the police? What is that going to do for you? You know, you don't have someone. No one wants to go out and do the policing themselves, or at least they wouldn't do it in a just way. There wouldn't be, you know, if they weren't doing it with laws and a system behind them to make sure it was done in like a structured, just way. And I'm not saying that policing is always done justly. You know, there are those edge cases, but the whole reason we have a police force is so that we can feel safe going out, so that crimes get addressed. And yeah, this is not the way to do it.
Of course it's going to be dysfunctional. Of course it's going to lead to crime waves. Is that what's happening? Is that why we've got crime in the city? Let me know. How would you fund the police in New York, or are they funded too heavily? Should we restrict their funding? Let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next video.
I think we know that restricting their funding is not going to be the answer. Yeah, that was crazy. Absolutely crazy to see. New York is falling apart. They do not understand the importance of a full and functioning police force, apparently. It's very apparent. And then not having the correct consequences for people stealing. Why are people allowed to get away with stealing below $1,000? That is just the dumbest decision ever. There is no good that could come from that. So you have this, you know, coagulation of this mess between not enough police, defunding and whatever, people retiring and not filling in enough police after people leave. And then you have not enough consequences for people stealing and committing crimes. And then you mix that together and crime is just spreading. It's just spreading like a field of roses. Except it's not. It's all thorns and no flower or something like that. Whatever. New York's a mess. Hopefully they figure it out. I really hope so for the citizens' sake. And yeah, that was absolutely crazy to see.